Many blessings to you. It's so wonderful to be here with you. I've missed connecting with you, but I thought it was really important to come back to YouTube to connect. And we are in the heart of nature. I'm stealing one of Ralph Smart's lines. I was inspired to come out, so I hope that you can hear me well. We do have an airport here about 20 minutes away, so if you hear any activity in the air as I'm speaking and sharing, then it's all part of the sharing that we're going to have today. Yes, there is so much that I desire to share with you regarding this amazing moment that we find ourselves in, this new paradigm, this new cycle, which is so important. So much that I don't know where to begin. And part of that is because I've always been part of the mystery teachings, and a lot of the teachings, although I did a lot of work with Loon and the Emerald Paradigm, which I miss, and some videos that I shared myself and with Bobby, you know, I'm usually behind the scenes with students, sharing and really expanding the fields of the ascension process of the ancient mystery teachings. But you know, we are in a new cycle. There is so much going on with humanity, and I felt beyond inspired. I felt compelled to come out, and so I hope that this share speaks to you, resonates with you, and I do hope to come back often because, as I said, there is a lot to share. I was inspired actually also to come and share because of the activity that's been very prevalent in the Schumann Resonance. Perhaps most of you or some of you are familiar with the Schumann Resonance. It plays a vital part, and it always has, in the magnetic field, of course, of the Earth, and how the Schumann Resonance is a representation of that magnetic energy that's always coming into the Earth realm. But we need to take it beyond the Earth realm to remember that we are part of the Earth realm as humanity, right? And so as the energy, the magnetic energy comes into the Earth realm, it is showering, and that's a light word, all of humanity with incredible activity. If you follow the Schumann Resonance and you follow these measurements have been off the charts for, I would say, the last 2 weeks or so, escalating over the last month. We love to see that because the measurement represents activity from the cosmos, from the magnetic field, and beyond the cosmos. So it means that there's an awakening process, you know, and so we always want to see that. So I was going to come and talk about the Schumann Resonance, and then another subject that's very active right now within the awakened, within the awakened ones and within the ascension, is ascension symptoms that are being felt, experienced as a consequence of the Schumann Resonance, the magnetic activity, and the awakening process, right? And that's an important subject as well, so much so that I wanted to start there, but I felt that I almost needed to share this class, and these are classes that I've, again, given over the years, over the decades, over the last 2 decades at least, of the mystery teachings to the students so that they could grow in an understanding in their soul, to understand the mystery teachings and understand how we are all a part of that, of this awakening, of this ascension, right? So I felt like I needed to start here. I'm really gonna try to make it short because I really don't want to make these videos too long, so perhaps the endeavor is to come back if you're inspired. Of course, you can let me know that by liking it, sharing a comment, so that I can keep coming back with these mystery teaching classes that are so important right now, right? So I have 12 lines here that represent the 12 dimensions. And we're going to choose the 12 dimensions, although most of us, or some of us, may know that the universal, galactic, universal force is vast. And so if we talk about vastness, there's no number, but we're talking about the Earth Ascension. And because of that, we're going to talk about the first 12 dimensions of Ascension. And there's a reason why we start there, and I want to share with you why this is so important. I feel it's going to really speak to you and give you a fundamental understanding of who you are, what this process is, how it moves through the ascension process, and how we can move with it, right? So we begin at the bottom, right? This 1 and 2 dimensions. We could say a lot about it. I'm going to say very simple. It's the primitive evolution of humanity. We can say a lot about it, like I said, but that's not what we're going to be talking about. In a later class, we can talk about that. But the first and second dimensions are the dimensions of the primitive humanity, right? They haven't even begun to understand what a human or human experience is, right? But because they're in the 12th dimensions, we are going to include them, right? As we move along, so these are primitive, right? We're going to call them primitive little ones, right? As we move into the 3rd dimension, we have what I lovingly like to call the little ones, right? And when I say little ones, there's nothing but love in that reference. Little ones meaning a baby, they're part of the human experience. They probably do not have an awareness of their vast divine potential. But they're having the human experience, and encompassing that human experience comes many experiences, right? Happiness, sadness, love, joy, hatred, separation, the yearning for unity, and the mixture of all of that that has happened in the 3D paradigm, right? Of course, we know that paradigm is still in existence to a great degree. It has, in the etheric space, collapsed. And again, I'm not going to go too deeply into what I mean by that, because I just want to be able to get through this for you. But that paradigm has collapsed in the etheric space. And of course, it's one of the reasons in the 3D environment why we're seeing so much chaos, right? Because the 3D environment dimension really doesn't have a foundation anymore. It is being supported by the energetic field of the little ones, right? And so, because there's no higher dimension that's supporting it, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of fear, right? And that structure, that dimension is still very functional. Even though it's collapsed, it doesn't disappear overnight, right? So this 4th dimension here, and again, I want to honor the first 12 dimensions of what we're talking about, of ascension. So we're going to say passing through, okay? And why I'm choosing those words is because we know that the 4th dimension exists. Why is it that many teachers talk about going from 3D to 5D and they never really talk about the 4D? It's because this is a stopping point, if you may. And I want to just emphasize the positive, the high side of this passing through, which is the gurus. Many of the avatars who have crossed over have chosen to take a stance, a place in the 4th dimensional field to provide protection, because this 4th dimension is an area where many sentient beings as well as other beings from the galactic planetary fields can come and visit or pass through, right? And because of that, many of the avatars and gurus have chosen to take a space in the fourth dimensional field to protect humanity from being obstructed, from being infiltrated, right? And so this is why many of the gurus and teachers do not talk about the fourth dimension, and I can only share what I, as a teacher, what I feel is that we should avoid going to the fourth dimensional field and always go with our guides, right? And the foundation of our teacher, our guru, to help us transport ourselves from the third to the 5D, right? Because this really should be a no zone, right? And then we have the fifth dimension, right? Which is where we are now, right? Ascension, where the ascension is taking place in this moment. And this fifth dimensional field is where we find the new paradigm, what we're calling the new paradigm. Of course, this is all energy. If you remember, or if you're not aware, the fifth dimensional space began in the earth realm. And in many of the videos I know that I've shared before, that the earth was going to ascend, period. Whether humanity chose through free will and through growth to acceleration to follow the earth was going to be the process, right? But the earth has definitively anchored herself in the fifth dimensional field, and as such the ascension process began, and this is where we hope that so many of the not little ones anymore, but the sentient beings that we are in human form are engaging in and tapping into, vibrating at the frequency of the 5D, right? But why I wanted to call this the fifth dimension and above, beyond, is because it's so important for us to know, and it's not that we're rushing the process, like, oh, we got to 5D, so go, let's go beyond that. We should go beyond it because we are multi-dimensional beings. But something is, I've observed something in this fifth dimensional field, which I mentioned earlier, which is the Ascension Symptoms. And my observation is that it's almost brought many to a halt. And it's brought them to a halt because they recognize that, yes, the earth is in a fifth dimensional field. Yes, we've reached, or, we've been ushered into the fifth dimensional space, but now we're having all of these ascension symptoms, right? And again, I really want to have a talk about that specifically, but there's so much that encompasses that, and one of the ways that we can address that is by realizing that we don't stop. We don't need to stop at the fifth dimensional space, right? And when we entered the fifth dimensional frequency, we became reborn. We shedded so much of our littleness, of our projections, of our conditioning, of the beliefs that we hold, and a renewal process literally is taking place, has taken place, will take place, depending on where we are individually and collectively, right? But for some of us who are prepared, awakened enough, we're going to realize that, yes, the mass ushering of humanity is going to come into the fifth dimensional state, but we're going to be able, for those who have prepared, who have done the work, who have awakened, to propel way beyond this fifth dimensional state, right? And this is where the real good stuff starts, right? So I want to sort of interject and say, I'm going to stop at the fifth and kind of go here, okay? Because I want to recognize these dimensions, but I really am not going to spend too much time talking about them, because when we reach the 10th, 11th, and 12th dimension, we are truly in another experience. You know, we have become avatars. We have become illuminated. At this level, we are engaging and co-creating with the higher dimensional sentient beings, the Syrians, the Arcturians, the consuls, the galactic consuls. You know, we're doing intergalactic work. We're able to, at this level, we have an understanding that we are multidimensional, that there is no time, that we have multiple realities, that we can shapeshift and move into those alter realities at will, that we can be at multiple realities at the same time, you know? So I said a lot, right? And the goal and the endeavor of this, my angels, I'm gonna call you my angels, is we're not rushing here. And it's not a place that we should rush to, because this is a divine journey and an experience of your growth. So this presentation of this class is not to say, like, how do we hurry up and get to the 10th dimension? But actually, by the time we get to this place, we're really preparing ourselves to probably exit this body, because we've become so illuminated that the only possibility that will keep us here is to be of divine service in a major way to humanity, right? And to be sort of like an oracle between these higher dimensions and the lower dimensions, to be a bridge, you know? So it's a lot of work, right? So, but we want to come here. What happens here, you know? Something amazing starts to happen here, right? And again, we are in the fifth dimensional field, we are in the ascension process, but for those who have really created a foundation for themselves, you are already tapping into these, okay? And maybe not as fluidly as you'd like to, maybe not as fluidly as, you know, as you should yet, you know, depending on where you are in your evolution, but you're definitely tapping into these higher dimensions, right? And I want to start here, Christ-like, you know. In the fifth dimension, what does that mean? Christ-like, you know, just like what it sounds like. You know, you are an avatar, you see the oneness in everyone, you're vibrating completely from the heart chakra, you know, vibrationally. You are focusing on unconditional love. You are of service, of divine service, you know. And from this place, you know that you have the capability, if it's in divine order, to create miracles, you know, miracles, to see the oneness in all, you know, and to carry that oneness into every experience that you have with everyone that you have. So you are an illuminated being walking in that energy for others, right? In between here, this is your soul essence, right? And at this level, at this 8th dimensional field, you've recognized that somebody greater, that you are something much greater than who you think you've been, you know? You start vibrating from your soul essence, and you recognize how multidimensional you truly are. You could do many things in this dimensional field, you know, and I'm kind of bringing them all together. Here, you start to teleport, you know, or begin to know what that means. You know, you can shapeshift, right? But more here, a little bit more there. You're very telepathic, right? you've really honed in into your empathic energies, right? You understand the healing energies, you know, of being a light worker, of being a healer. And at this seventh, between the seventh and eighth, because there is a growing process, you know, you start to really sharpen being multidimensional. You realize that you're not limited, right, by a vocation or a career, you know, that you are truly multidimensional, that you can practice being more than one thing, essence, and you could be in more than one reality and more than one dimension within those states, right? I know I'm forgetting something. I had little notes. Yes, right. So Christ-like. At this place, you're 99% in the heart. Why do I say 99 and not 100? Because in the laws of the 12 dimensions, no one is going to be perfect. Here at the 11th and 12th, you're getting like really close, which is why I said that at these levels, you really have to be of divine service, or else you will exit the body, because you know that you know that you know. So it's very hard to just kind of play the human game at that point. So we have to leave the 1% for having the moments, you know, still being in the human experience, even if it's 1%, right? But in 99% of the aspects, it is Christ-like. We call this dimension Christ-like because we know that the Christ walked in that dimensional state and beyond, right? But eventually he completed his mission, which is why he had to leave. So why am I sharing this? You know, why is it important for you, for all of us? Is because, again, I feel that if we just focus that we need to get to the fifth dimension, we're really limiting ourselves and stealing from the reality that the fifth dimension is the prelude, really, so that we can parachute up into these other dimensions, and in this new paradigm state and cycle, really become who we were meant to be here in this umbrella of the 12 dimensions, right? So I felt that it was important to share with you so that you don't stop here at this fifth dimension and say, oh my God, I'm having all of these ascension symptoms, which I will talk about in the next video, and I'm stuck. What do I do? You know, oh, I thought this was supposed to be a good process, and why am I suddenly finding myself with all of this uncomfortability, right? Well, yes, there's an answer to that, but remember that it doesn't end here. There's so much more in your horizon, right? So I'm looking at something that I wrote in the class and that I want to sort of really include here before I bring this to close. Don't mind my drawing. I can't draw very well, right? So this is to represent spirals, and I just want to call these the higher realms and the lower realms, right? And if you look at these spirals, you'll see that they in some way correlate to the 12 dimensions, right? If we want to say that the fourth or so is the lower realms, and from the fifth and above is where we start moving into the higher realms, right? And we could see from the lower realms, if we look at this, right, this is where the separation, you know, victimization and all the wounds, trauma, all of that has occurred, right? Of course, even from the lower realms, the goal, the endeavor, the invitation was for the little ones to start moving up this spiral, to reach the highest point, even if it was in the lower realms, the highest point, to prepare for the 5D ascension, right? And then these higher realms, of course, are talking about every dimension that I've just spoke about. You know, what happens, what can happen. So this, from the lowest point, is the fifth dimension and above, right? It's what's waiting to happen, right? So I remember years ago doing this class and being told by the council and Thoth that at the time there was a little bridge that was still open between the lower realms and the higher realms, and that bridge was an opportunity for the little souls, the little ones, to escalate, to ascend, right, into this higher realm and be able, through that growth process, to come into this bridge and to move over to the higher realms, you know, or be ushered into the higher realms. But I was also told that this bridge, as we got closer to the ascension process, will become smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's no judgment in that. It is what it is. Many souls have chosen to awaken because that was their calling, their desire, and many souls have chosen to remain asleep, right? And of course, from a physical perspective, we can feel that and say like, oh my God. But we know that this is an experience, and we know that all souls transcend back into the universal one source. So we have to honor that process. Of course, as we awaken, we want to bring everybody, right, to usher through that bridge. So why this becomes important is about a year ago or so, I would say, or maybe a little under a year, I released a book called The New Atlantis and the Sofia Codex, which has 8 DNA codes that were given to us, gifted to us by the Sofia and Thoth himself and the mother Cretex to be able to help us. We have a guest here, a beautiful hawk, to usher us into the fifth dimensional state. And as this bridge became smaller and as we got closer to the anchoring of the fifth dimension, the Codex created a protocol, which I absolutely love, right? Which is, it doesn't really matter where the little ones are. They can qualify themselves into the higher realms of the new paradigm, even if it's at this point, if they come with an open heart, right? If they come with an open heart. And so suddenly that changes everything, because it's not only about what we've learned and how we've grown, although that, of course, by merit of that growth and evolution, we have ascended ourselves. But imagine that you don't have to have all of that wisdom. And if you come with an open heart center and say, I want to experience, I want to hold unconditional love, that by virtue of that, the little ones can be ushered into this 5-dimensional state, and they can begin that new sense of growth, right? And of unity and all of this bliss that happens when we get here, right? And so it's a game changer, right? And a beautiful game changer. So I want to share in saying that it doesn't really matter, you know, what has happened, what they've done, what they haven't done, what you haven't done, what we haven't done. What matters is that we come from an open heart center, and that means unconditional love and holding the energy of oneness. So of course that excludes judgment, ridicule, indifference, and all of that. You know, you can have a lot of ascension, by the way, and disqualify yourself if you're not coming from the heart. So that really reiterates that it's not only knowledge that gets you there. It's knowledge, it's wisdom, it's evolution, but it's your heart, your ability to become one with all that is, that's really going to qualify you, right? So this is wonderful, right? I am writing yet another book. It's a series, the third in the Goddess Mother trilogy, and it is called The Goddess Returns. There's a lot happening with all of this, you know, the masculine fields, the feminine fields, what's gonna happen as we move through this ascension, right? But this morning, I was writing a chapter in that book, and even last night I actually was brought to the awareness by the Christ himself, and he said, make sure that you include in that book, the meek shall inherit the earth, right? The meek shall inherit the earth. Wow, right, is what I can say. And again, it goes right back to the message of the Codex, to the message of the Divine Mother, to the message of Thoth, of the universal force field. We have got to come from the heart in order to qualify, right? And so let us return to that love. My message for you today is come to the heart. You know, we can do that very simply, although it's work, to forgive others, surrender, release, you know, allow yourself to forgive yourself, forgive others, to purge, you know, to come into a place of love, you know, to learn how to not engage with the external, especially the collapsing or the collapsed old structure of the 3D, you know that there's a door open, there's a portal open, there's a new world, there's a new paradigm, it's here. You are welcomed to come in, right? What brings you there is an open heart. And what follows is then your growth and the growth of humanity, right? So I know I've said a lot. I will come back. Listen, I want to steal a lot of lines. I haven't been on YouTube for a while, but I love to see those beautiful teachers and avatars that are continuously passing on the message as well. I love Ralph Smart, so, you know, I love Everyday Lives. Smash that button, that like button. Why? Because we want this message to go out to the little ones. We want everyone to hear this message. We want everybody to be inspired to ascend, right? And so please take a moment. If this has any significance, if you've learned anything today, then smash that like button, you know, subscribe to the channel and share it. More importantly, share the message. Don't be selfish. If it spoke to you, then share it with others, right? I will be back with this, of course, and the videos are going to change. They're going to be shorter because we have important things to share, right? In the meantime, of course, I always leave you with my divine love, with my light, and with my peace. I love you so very much, and I'm so proud of all of you, and I continue to hold the divine field for you as you ascend beyond what you could ever have imagined. Yes? I love you so much.